You're listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live.
Hello and welcome to Garibaldi Red, Nottingham Forest podcast from Nottinghamshire Live. My name's Matt Davis and I'm here to talk about Forest 2, Wycombe 0. I almost got the score then. Forest 2, Wycombe 0 with Reds fan Lisa Fox. I was at the game as well. Lisa, good evening. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Are you?
Yes, good. I've just warmed up. Well, I shouldn't complain about being at football because, no one else is, so it's a stupid thing to say.
No, you shouldn't really complain too much.
No, not to moan about the weather. Well, you must be in a good mood tonight. That was a good, steady win, wasn't it, for Forest?
It really was. It was, on paper, the game should be quite easy, but we all know as a Forest fan that generally doesn't tend to happen. So, yeah, it was a very good result. Yeah,
I don't mind admitting I thought it would be a poor game and Forest would win 1-0, and someone who we both know said the same. So for them to actually win pretty comfortably when they probably should have won by more is, definitely glass half full tonight heading into the international break. What did you, if we go back to 2 o'clock, what did you make of the team with 2 changes? And we thought it was going to be a change in formation, but it wasn't. So what did you make of the team in the end?
No, I mean, even when you'd got both Guerrero and Taylor in there, you kind of knew to a degree that it wasn't going to be a 4-4-2 formation, and all these people were saying it's going to be 4-4-2. It's like it really isn't. The formation does tend to work. So you just kind of say, okay, I was all right with that. The team or the first 11 that we had in did the job, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a bit sceptical of Guerrero, having seen a little bit of him. In fact, the only thing I'd seen of him was the Coventry game when he came on and looked a bit too Rafa Mir for my liking, but which made me nervous. But I thought he was really good today, and he's given Luke Freeman a few worries, I would think, because he played in that deeper lying forward role better than anyone I've seen this season. What did you make of him?
Yeah, I thought he did really, really well. Taylor, I think, will take the plaudits for his 2 goals and his work rate, and he was very, very good. But Guerrero, what he did, you can't kind of shy away from. He did play very, very well. And I think that Knockout had a really good game, and he was given quite a lot of flack on social media on Wednesday night. That it's quite interesting, isn't it, that you see a player that comes into your side that has set the world alight everywhere else he's been and always been a thorn in your side, and you think he's going to hit the ground running and firing on all cylinders from day one, and it really isn't like that.
That's true. I just had to mute myself because my kids are shouting in the background, so sorry if anyone heard that. I'm supposed to be in bed by now. Let's put a couple of comments on. We're streaming on Facebook. If anyone wants to comment, we'll read those out and take a couple of questions if anyone has any. David Stone played well in both halves at last. It sounded like we played with confidence finally from Adam G. Very much good work to be done. In Chris we trust. I didn't read that out in my head before I read it. I normally read them for swear words, so thanks for not swearing, Chris Peacock. Do you think they played well consistently for 90 minutes? There was a bit of a sticky patch in the second half where Wycombe could easily have made it 1-1 before Taylor scored his second.
Yeah, and it was quite an interesting one, wasn't it, that? Because actually Forest showed today what they are capable of, and in previous games, possibly under Hughton, we would have conceded, and then we may well have gone on to lose the game or a draw, whatever. They then bring in Akinfenwa on and McCleary, to a degree, changed the way that they played and actually put Forest on the back foot for a little bit. But they did soak up the pressure for those 10 minutes and then went and scored a pretty incredible goal on the break, to be fair.
Leo Cook says that he'd switch the strikers. I don't think I agree. I thought Guerrero looked much better, and I don't think he's a number 9. Taylor said afterward he's definitely not a target man, which is what we've been led to believe when he signed from Olympiacos. So I'd probably disagree with you there, Leo. Greg Orr makes a good point about Colback's best game since his return. I thought Colback was much better than he has been. He looked like the player from his previous loan spells, breaking up play and making more of a nuisance of himself. What did you make of Colback, Lisa?
Yeah, I thought that was probably his best game since he came back. And it's, you've got to remember that with Jack. He was out of football for a while. You know, he wasn't in the Newcastle squad last season. He had to get his fitness back. And whilst Forest signed him quite early on in the transfer window, once the last season had finished, they weren't back in training for a bit. So there are players, and I would say Guerrero is another one that actually will come into his own as the season grows. And I think we have got a squad that has got strength in depth for the first time in quite a while.
That's true. They've got some good options there. I think if we look at the game then, I thought Wycombe were actually decent, to be fair, and I can see them staying up if they've got enough goals in them. Forest were a bit more ruthless, and they scored a good goal to go ahead, didn't they? Christie's another player taken some stick, but he was better today, and he put in a really good cross for Taylor to head in, to be fair, didn't he?
He did. I thought Christie had a really good game, and I think there should be positives, and there is. From today's game, there are positives all over the pitch. You know, fans are very, very quick to make sure that there's a scapegoat after every game, and I honestly don't get it. You know, Colback had a really good game. Christie, like you say, put in a really good cross for the goal. Everybody worked really hard, and I just think it is a work in progress to a degree. You've got to remember, Forest were in quite a tough place at the end of last season, going into this season without very much time to get over it. And whilst there have been quite a lot of new signings, they need chance to gel. And ultimately, we are 7 games into Hughton's reign, and we've only lost one of them. So that's got to be a positive, surely.
Yeah, and they really should have beaten Rotherham as well, but for that, Torres-esque miss from Graben on the night, you know, I have nightmares about that one forever. Dan Cook says, great win. Looks like people in the US are celebrating.
Nothing else to celebrate out there, is there?
Well, I think those are blues, not reds, celebrating in America, if I've got my Democrat and Republican colours right there. But yeah, I think we're all happy all round, or hopefully we all are. Where else shall we comment on? Aidan Fisher says about McKenna being the best signing for years. I asked Hughton afterwards about McKenna and Figueiredo as a pairing. He's been impressed with them. I think, is it fair to say McKenna's been the senior partner in there who's out, he's overshadowed Figueiredo, but Figueiredo was pretty good today as well, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. And, it's quite interesting, that McKenna is getting all the plaudits, and Figs has been steady. And I guess, a lot of fans are saying that Worrell will be the second part of that partnership when he's back fit. But I do think, a competition is for the places is good. And I don't, where Figs does kind of command a little bit more is when we're going forward and we're attacking, and he gets himself in really good positions and stuff. But it's good that we've got the option. But McKenna, yeah, he is a really good signing. He does steady that ship, and I think to a degree, at some point, he is potentially a future captain of the side.
So what's the long-term pairing then for you? Worrell and McKenna, or Figueiredo and McKenna? I mean, I assume McKenna is one of the two.
Yeah, I mean, it's McKenna and another, isn't it? You can't kind of say that it's not going to be. But I would expect that it will be Worrell.
What about in terms of Forest actually looking like an attacking threat all the way through, or not all the way through as we discussed, but for most of it? And do you think they probably should have gone on to win 3 or 4, but for some good saves by the keeper?
They should. I mean, the save from the keeper from Arter was brilliant, and I mean that whole move was just. I was pretty chuffed with that, to be honest. I was like, yeah, that was really good, and it was only the fact that their keeper was as good as he was that wasn't it, that it didn't make it a 3-0 comfortable win, whereas 2-0 was kind of, we needed that second goal because they were kind of on the front foot and we were kind of not at that point. By the same token, the second goal did steady the ship for Forest, and there was at that point only ever going to be one winner. And
Taylor kind of gave a complete centre forwards performance, the best one I've seen for a while. Certainly this season, he scored 2 very different goals. He should have set up the third for Arta, like you say. His link-up play was good, and he was more energetic. And he didn't give the ball away as much as he had. Do you think he cemented his place even when Graben's fit now, or not, as the leading striker, or is it too early to say?
He's on 4 goals. So you wouldn't necessarily drop him. And competition is a good thing. But we all know. I mean, I've always been very much in the Lewis Graben is a very, very good footballer camp.
I've got the wrong guest on here to slag off Graben.
Sorry, I have. He's, Lewis Graben for me has always been underrated. But everywhere he goes, he kind of, everybody says the same thing about him, that he gets to a point where he's had enough, and then he gets lazy, and etc. etc. And that's unfortunately what Forest fans have seen from him this year, that he's not started very quickly, but then he hasn't started very quickly in the last 2 seasons. And I'd love to see the 2 of them play alongside each other. That would be quite an exciting partnership, and one that you would expect goals to come from both of them.
Where do you think this leaves Freeman now? Because Guerrero's done well and Freeman hasn't really hit the heights, and he's a lone player. Do you think Freeman might be bumped down the pecking order, or do you see him getting a chance again soon, and the challenge has been laid down now that he's really going to have to step up, isn't he?
He really is, but that's let's go back to the strength in depth conversation. To have someone like Luke Freeman on the bench, and he's got to work for his place, but he is absolutely quality. So how good is it that, if you get sort of a player like Guerrero, who 60, 65 minutes in is getting tired because he's not been playing many minutes and he's not match fit, and you've got someone like Freeman that can come on for the last half an hour. Other teams aren't going to look at the Forest bench and go, oh, they're not very strong, which last season was my worry all the way through, that from when you kind of got past the first 11 or maybe 12, 13 players, there wasn't anybody that could come on and change the game, whereas this year we've actually got that.
There's a comment here from Steve Shelton about Forest will get better from here. Do you think that's right now? Because they've got international break, and then they've got Barnsley, who are not the best side in the world unless they're playing Nottingham Forest, and then Bournemouth, who aren't going to be easy. Are we getting a bit carried away with one very lucky result on Wednesday and a decent result today, or are you optimistic now?
You know what, the next 3 games are quite tough. One, because Barnsley always seem to be a thorn in our side, but Forest over the last few seasons have gone out and, against teams where you wouldn't expect them to pick results up, they have picked results up, and that's kind of got to be the yardstick, hasn't it? That actually, if in the next 3 matches we come out of that with 5 or 6 points or whatever, you would take that as a very good return on those 3 games. But anything can happen. Forest will probably lose against Barnsley, because that's what happens, and then go and pick really good points up away at Bournemouth, which will be tough. But it's a game, they lost their leading scorer in the summer. So whilst they are doing really well, it's not out of Forest's hands that they can't go out there and do something that would surprise you.
Just a couple more before we go then. Owen Bailey picking up on the key point, he had his best game in a Forest shirt today. He was given some problems early on by the winger, was it Horgan? I forget his name, who I thought was pretty good for Wycombe, but he recovered well. Do we give Christie credit for stepping up as Freeman's just been challenged too?
I think we do, because he, last week, and he kind of came out and said he held his hands up. He was at fault for the goal. And you've got to remember that they are human beings, and mistakes are part of our nature and are part of our makeup. And for the fact that he did come out after and held his hands up and said it was my fault and I am responsible for it, he's still got the old Twitter negative Nellies kind of giving him grief. And you just think, just come on. That he's new to the side, and okay, he's not Matty Cash, but Matty wasn't Matty Cash 18 months ago. So let's just be positive and see what's to come, because there is still a lot of football to be played.
A couple more, because I told you 15 minutes maximum. It's been 15 minutes. Leo says Amiobi and Ribeiro are a good partnership. Are we seeing more of that and that link up from last season? Do you think that's something there to build on with Ribeiro back in the side now?
Yeah, I mean, he has looked, he's come back in and he's just taken that chance with both hands, hasn't he? He's looked really, really steady in the last 2 games. And I actually made the point earlier that you've got Amiobi who can be unplayable at times, but for him to go off and the player that you're bringing on for him is Lolly, you kind of go, yeah, I'll deal with that. And it does take a very, very good manager to be able to deal with the size of the squad that Forest have got. And at the moment, they do seem to be playing for each other. They seem to have a good team morale again, which had kind of gone a little bit. You know, there was that where that maybe the dressing room morale had been lost with Sabri in there, but it is onwards and upwards. And I just think we've got to be positive, because there's so many things not to be positive about at the minute that you kind of want the football to be good.
True. Greg Oram says we've shaken off the hangover now. 7 games, 3-3-1 in terms of Hughton's record. I'm not sure I completely agree. I think we're on the way to shaking off the hangover. I don't think, if you take Taylor's goal out of Wednesday, they were pretty average against Coventry. So I don't want to get too carried away, but I think that Hughton has got them on the right track. Have you, just before we finish then, Lisa, what have you made of Hughton so far?
I said when we were kind of in the blip with Sabri that for Forest to go forward, we needed somebody that knew the Championship and could kind of hit the ground running. Now, whilst the football to a degree hasn't been the prettiest, and there have still been, I think, some surprise selections made because he's picked certain players over other players and the football hasn't necessarily been that much different. There are signs that he will start to tweak, and he won't, I don't think he'll be afraid of change either. I really like him. I think, you know, this has got to be Forest's best chance of getting out of the Championship. And even though we are still kind of languishing in the wrong half of the table at the moment, we know ourselves as Forest fans how quickly that can change. You know, we've seen it in the past. We've seen how Forest can implode. We've seen that other teams have also pressed the self-destruct button, and I think we've got to be positive that if Hughton can't get us out of this league, no one can.
Oh God, don't say that. Yeah. Well, no manager's lasted that long, so we'll see. Right, Greg Oram, can we have more Lisa on, please? Well, Greg, she drove a tough bargain between the Strictly schedule and her dinner, but we negotiated now. So, yes, if she's not such a hard negotiator next time. International break comes at a good time, says Dan Cook. Chance to build on partnerships on the training ground and improve going forwards, which I think is true. Let's finish then, Lisa. I'll give you the last word. Are you optimistic the playoff push is coming there, or are you just thinking let's get into mid-table and see what happens?
I think Hughton will have been given a very clear idea of what is required from him this year, and I think that the Forest, regardless of the position that we are at the moment, I think that they've got to go for top 6. I mean, ultimately they missed out by 1 goal last year. We stayed up by 1 goal a couple of seasons earlier, so you know, times have changed a little bit, but I think we have got to aim for the top 6. And Pearce, when he was our manager, you know, we were at the end of October or going into this international break, we'd sit there top of the league, really, really pretty, and we all know how that ended. So there's a lot of football still to be played, and I am quietly optimistic that we're not out of the running yet. No,
true. Let's enjoy tonight. Derby are bottom of the league for at least 2 weeks, and the Mega Bucks owner hasn't arrived yet, so let's see what happens there. Although I do feel sorry for Philip Cocu. I know I'm not supposed to say that, but he's had some stuff to put up with, to be fair, as a manager. Right. He has. Thanks to everyone who's watched along. There's been lots of you here at 8:20 on a Saturday. nights. We appreciate that. Lisa, thanks for coming on and drawing yourself away from Strictly. Is it finished yet, or no? Is it still on?
No, there's elves on screen at the moment. I've got no clue what's happening.
Sounds amazing. Right. Thanks, everyone. We'll be back on Tuesday, a full podcast with Sarah Clapson returning from holiday and Gary Birtles, who always goes down well on here. So have a good weekend, everyone, and we shall see you soon.